Been 2 years since the shooting death of Trayvon Martin, and in a provocative new book, legal analyst Lisa Bloom examines the circumstances that led to the teen's death and the acquittal of George Zimmerman. The book is called Suspicion Nation, and Lisa Bloom joins us live right now. Good morning. Thank you so much.
Good morning.
In the book, you actually lay out the 6 biggest mistakes made by the state of Florida. So give our viewers some insight as to what you thought some of the big mistakes were.
Right. So as I was watching this case last summer, I was very disturbed. I knew that something was wrong, but afterwards I had to do my own investigation and new interviews to find out exactly what happened. I think one of the biggest mistakes was that the prosecution missed its own smoking gun evidence, and by that I mean George Zimmerman showed on a videotape that he holstered his gun behind him inside the waistband on the back of his pants. Now he says he was lying down on his back and Trayvon Martin was assaulting him. Trayvon saw the gun, reached for the gun, threatened his life, and that's when Zimmerman had to pull the gun and shoot to save his own life. The problem with that is that there's no way that Trayvon could have seen the gun through Zimmerman's body while he was lying on his back unless he had x-ray vision. And if Trayvon couldn't see the gun, he couldn't have reached for it and threatened his life. It destroys Zimmerman's self-defense claim.
So why did the prosecution blow it like that so badly if it was there was a smoking gun?
Right, and that's only one of 6 major blunders that the prosecution did. And you have to ask yourself in reading my book, what exactly is going on here? Why is this case so different than all of the other high-profile murder trials that I've covered in the last 15 or 20 years? Was it incompetence, or did they intentionally bungle the case?
So is it the laws and the biases that are out there that led to the killing of Trayvon Martin and the acquittal of George Zimmerman?
Well, here's what I think. I think the prosecutors never wanted this case. Remember, it was 45 days before they even arrested Zimmerman, and it took a groundswell of public opinion and demonstrations for them to even do it. I don't think they believed in the case. I don't think they believed this African-American teenage kid was actually the victim instead of the aggressor in the case. And so they didn't look for the evidence in the way that an aggressive trial lawyer really would.
You also interviewed the only non-white jury member. What insight were you able to get that no one else was able to see?
I was so moved by Maddie's story, and I opened the book with her story. And by the way, there's an excerpt on thedailybeast.com this morning. That's the beginning of my book that tells her story. She really tells a very disturbing story of racial profiling inside the jury room. There were 6 women on this jury, as you may remember, 5 white, and then there was Maddie, who's Puerto Rican / African American. And she says she was treated differently from the very beginning. She was demeaned. They made fun of how she talks. They laughed at her, and she isolated herself. By the time deliberations came around, she had no voice. She felt so different and so demeaned that she couldn't speak up for the conviction that she felt was the right verdict.
Why couldn't she? Why couldn't she do something? Because that's why she was appointed as a jury member.
Right.
She could have been the lone holdout.
Right. I mean, I think you really have to read her story.
Okay.
Consider 3 weeks of being sequestered, being away from your family. She had 8 kids.
So she really felt isolated.
For example, one of the jurors wanted 9 hours with her dog on a weekend. She was granted that. And yet Maddie couldn't have the same amount of time with her 3-month-old baby.
It's been 2 years. Do you feel that Zimmerman is still guilty?
I think the prosecution had a very winnable case. They bungled it. I dissect it all in the book. I think there's no question that he shot Trayvon Martin intentionally. I don't believe his self-defense story. I don't think anybody will after reading my book.
Also, before you leave, I just want to ask you one question. Justice is supposed to be blind, but you know, we've seen time and time again that it is not, especially with the stop and frisk cases that are happening here in New York. What lessons are to be learned?
I'm so glad you said that, because people say, is this just about Florida? And it's not. It's about a nation as a whole, and that's why I call the book Suspicion Nation. We have to get past our suspicions of one another, especially suspicions based on skin color. They're not logical, and it's not right in 2014.
All right, thank you so much for being here. Of course, the book is called Suspicion Nation. It really examines the circumstances of the George Zimmerman case, but also pokes a lot of holes on what's happening when we're talking about the laws and biases that are out there. Lisa Bloom, thank you so much for being here. Of course, her book is in bookstores right now. It is 7:14.